a renowned multidisciplinary artist. In this masterclass, Shantanu unpacks the creative process behind building immersive visual worlds where art and design converge. Participants will explore techniques to develop compelling narratives through illustration, composition, and conceptual design, gaining insights into crafting unique artistic identities and visual languages. Whether you are an aspiring creator or an experienced designer, this session offers a deep dive into the tools and mindset needed to bring imaginative world to life. And something about the speaker, Shantanu Hazarika, is a multidisciplinary artist from Guwahati, Assam. Is a master of surreal, noir-inspired art. His globally celebrated works transcend mediums, blending mythology, pop culture, and emotion. A Red Bull Doodle art champion and NFT pioneer, Santanu redefines contemporary Indian art with his enigmatic style and boundary pushing vision. Sir, I request you to kindly come on the dais and start the session.
Hi everyone, I'm Shantanu Zarika, and thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And okay, do you want me to straight dive into this, or do you want me to just beat around the bush for some time? All right, it'll be a mix of both. All right, I'm kind of nervous, so sorry for that. So I'm Shantanu Zarika. I am a self-taught multidisciplinary artist. For me, my core medium has always been drawing and sketching, and everything that follows is just a side quest. So before most of my presentation, most of when it comes to visual arts and stuff, I usually talk about the backstory. So I think if you're trying to build a world, it's always important like to have a context from where the artist is coming from, what the experiences are, what the inspirations are. So the first presentation is basically, it revolves around to give you an idea of people who are not familiar with my work, to see what kind of works I do, and also what my origin story is. So this is a quote that I usually go by, is, as you can see on the board, is from a book called Seven Secrets of Vishnu by Devdutt Patnaik, where he goes with the opening title is basically, within infinite myth lies the eternal truth. Who sees it all? Varuna has but 1,000 eyes, Indra 100, you and I only two. So the key thing, I really like this quote because when it comes to visual art, I mean, as the name suggests, it has to do with visuals. What you see is what you perceive, and what you're seeing may be or may not be the whole truth. And our job as designers and artists is how to replicate, how to like procreate that truth, how to actually transform that into different mediums where one can experience and you can propagate it. My earliest form of inspirations came from comic books and heavy metal album covers. So I used to collect a lot of album covers, I used to collect a lot of comic book covers. Mind you, I never read any of them. I was never into the text part of it. I never knew what the stories were like. I would just be attracted to the pure visual side of it, like how dynamic those posters were, how graphic those album artworks were. So that's the primary inspiration of me growing up. Album artworks, inking style, that was the initiation for me to get into visual arts. Like, for example, like these are album covers that, sorry, these are the comic book covers that usually I used to replicate when I was like a teenager, when I was young. So as you can see, there's a huge, if you decipher most of it, there's always a messaging that goes out. And it's the album cover, like a poster or like any other key visual, there's always a central character, a protagonist, which is in a dynamic motion. And there's a story being told, and obviously there is like a title and everything, and the issue number and the necessary details. This is a form of communication, but this also blends an emotion with it. what's the difference between this and any other advertisement that you see? It's more or less essentially doing the same thing, buy our product, right? But the thing is, here there is some sort of an extra X factor to it. And that's where the art comes in. Design serves a purpose, and it's sort of a means to an end. But how do you create something which is artistically driven at the same time? Which just not only resonates with the purpose for which it's been created, but also strikes a different chord, which is much more deeper and emotional. So that way, comic book covers and album artworks kind of blend that question, like how far do you take a design and how far do you put art in that design? I started doing engineering. I got into mechanical engineering. I started studying engineering. I was working in a diesel shed fixing engine parts and stuff like that. Now, that thing taught me discipline and how to create things which are inspired out of your circumstances. So, during that moment of peace, I changed the whole medium from comic book cover to album cover, so everything. I started painting. I started creating artworks which were larger, where the end purpose is not a good poster or a visual, like a communicative piece of work, but rather completely emotionally driven. Now, during that time, I started painting. I dropped out of college, kept painting, started making more pieces like this, which were, again, a combination of comic book style inking. You have the central character, then mixed with the idea of painting. This is the mixed medium pieces that I'm showing you right now. This is ink, and this is digital. Again, more pieces which came out during that time were like this. Now, the emotion that's still there, even though it's a piece of painting, it's a piece of work, the emotion that I had carried from the time, with the turbulent time, still transcends into a peaceful time. But it's much more form-based, it's much more focused, and it's much more skilled from what I was doing back in the day. Now, this is an example of how world building also works. The emotion is very important when you're building your world as a designer or an artist. For me, it was angst. For me, it was a political statement that stuck around. And everything else that I learned, the skills to sort of express, came from the need to make things like this, to actually keep that angst alive. So most of the recent stuff, again, the same skill that I had learned just by using a pilot pen on a piece of paper, I started making the same thing. I just got back, started getting more ink, and started painting larger pieces which were entirely executed in the same style a comic book cover is executed. Again, self-work, self-portrait, yeah. So this is just a brief introduction of kind of work that I do, kind of paintings I make, and where my core essence of making art comes from. Then, obviously, yeah, these are some, again, more works. Okay. Now we come to the main part of the presentation, which is basically the components of world building. What is visual world building, and what are the different categories and the different styles that we can dwell into. So if we can move on to the next presentation. Again, some of my works. So this kind of shows the kind of universe that I have been trying to build over the last almost a decade. Things that I actually like, things that I want to like create and like put my art onto. So here I've selected few unconventional mediums when it comes to art or visual arts, because we mostly, when you think of visual art, we think of something very 2D, very screen-based, something to do with ads, something to do with products, advertisements, and hoardings and stuff like that. Here I wanted to show you the more 3D side to visual arts. For example, the first two illustrations, they are animated illustrations for Samsung and Budweiser, which I had done. Then again, some of the artworks and the same visual art that I do has been sort of transcribed and created as other projects, like the BMW bike over there, a bunch of helmets over there, sneakers, clothes, fashion, and almost everything that is a whole ecosystem of products. Now, the essence of visual art, seeing as thinking. Visual art is the earliest form of human communication. It predates language. It conveys thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and identity without words. Visual also encodes context. A symbol or style in one culture may hold an entirely different meaning in another. The earliest forms of maybe communication, I think we all know the cave paintings, right? Basically to like store information, pass on information, like also to sort of summarize. So there's a whole timeline. The earliest form is a cave painting, but out of that cave painting, we still got so much information out of it. Now, this was a visually depicted form of a good visual art form, given that at that time. Now, as we move forward, a lot of things. For example, this was the cave paintings discovered in the 1940s. Then you come fast forward to like, uh, if you look at history, some of the most iconic moments in history has been, for example, the discovery of printing press. So this is a general timeline. We have the whole idea of how visual art has existed over across a time, and it has kept evolving. Like back then, it was the cave paintings. Right now, these are memes. So, I mean, it's the same concept, the same essence. It's just that the medium keeps changing and evolving over time. Sorry, that's the laser. And there's a reason behind this, because human brains process images 60,000 times more faster than text or words. And that's why visual imagery works. Why do you think all these big companies, like right that we're sitting right here also, it's the same part of it. It's just, why do you think they rely on so much on data, so much on advertisements, so much specifically on colors and designing a certain color palette for everything? Because everything has a reason when it comes to visual communication. Now, if you look at the three sides of things when it comes to visual communication, is first is the most basic form of visual communication, which are very universal in nature. Like you have street signs, stop, go, green, red, light. All these are forms of communication which are imparting a certain information. Then comes a little bit more complex, but still around the same minimal style as, like for example, interiors, like Bauhaus designs and stuff. This is a visual take. This is how you decorate a space, an interior, an immersive experience, using minimalism or just a step ahead of street sign. Third most, I would say, for me, the most complex form of visual communication would be an album artwork or a comic book cover. Because an album artwork is completely depicting a whole different story. This is not your story. When you're making an album artwork, you're telling the story of the musician. You're taking that story, you're putting out a different word, you're creating a whole summary of that world using just a single piece of artwork. So that's an example of like how three different, like how complex three different sides of visual art can be or visual design can be, with few examples like street signs, Bauhaus designs, and album artworks. What is world building in its essential, the most core form? Types of world building. First is the narrative type, which includes comics, films, short format stuff, YouTube vlogs, everything. Next comes experiential, which is immersive installations and stuff around. Like, for example, we have a bunch of those photo ops sections right there. Those are good examples of experiential immersive installations. Like, even this whole setup that we have here can be considered as form of an immersive experience. It's well designed to serve a purpose, right? And I'm sort of communicating it. Then comes the cultural and aesthetic form of world building, which is for fashion, branding. And then comes conceptual, abstract or symbolic systems, which are in the gray area of being more artistically driven. It can be a very obscure piece of installation or a sculpture, something which is way more emotionally driven than design or like a functionally driven thing. So these are the types of world building we have. Like next. Now, a role of visual arts in world building, giving forms to fiction and feeling. So visuals don't just decorate, they architect the mood, logic, language of a world. As artists, we are world builders just like writers or directors. Now, these two are two very different forms of world building styles. For example, this is from Avatar with the movie Avatar, basically how they've created the whole world, the characters, the topography, the geography, everything. But it's for a movie, and it's again artistically driven, but it serves a purpose of entertainment. Next comes is these two are actually an example of this one. You know Takeshi Murakami? How many of you guys know Takeshi Murakami, the artist, Japanese artist? Yep. So you know what his style is. He is someone who does super flat style of painting, and which is entirely like, if you look at his stuff, it feels like it's graphic. It's very flat. But then he uses his components in his world and he transforms it into this, into sculptures, into things which are immersive, where people can walk into, experience, and basically be in his world. Both of them are equally like immersive. Both of them have equal weightage, but the processes are different and the way they have done it is different. Both of them serves the same purpose of actually sort of imparting an information about Takeshi Murakami, which is a personal information about his work, his struggles, and why he paints and what he paints. And this is more about the movie, the characters, the cinema that you're trying to make. Next comes just some of my work. Visual arts also define the geography, like I said, about the movie, about Avatar. So visual art defines geography, what the world looks like, culture, what people wear, value, fight for, myth, symbols and metaphors that shape meaning, and emotion, how the audience feels. Now, these are again album artworks which are from different, this one's for Ritviz, and this is a special case study because we created a whole world of Ritviz when I was working with him and his whole project, when his music came out, his second, third album. So the whole idea is to create a protagonist and to put the protagonist in that world. All the different kind of instruments that he plays, all the different forms of music he experiments with, where does he live, what's his surrounding like, everything had to be summarized in form of one single artwork for each of the album. Now, this is a comprehensive way to show all the different things that exist in this world. For example, the instruments, the cityscape that's there, all the myth and legend that's associated with his style of music. He is a fusion artist. He mixes electronic music with traditional classical Indian forms. So all of that sort of is given out by the visuals that you have on screen. So when you're doing research work on any projects, when you're building worlds, not just for yourself, for other brands or artists, these are the key points that you have to keep in mind while doing so. Geography, culture, myth, and emotion. That's very important. Then again, in fashion, I've worked with multiple brands when it comes to like as Mahindra. This is just a few examples. So again, what you wear is also curated. It's an experience in itself. Like your art, like for me, I personally believe like I kind of live, walk, and talk what I write and what I see and what I make. So for me, it's very important that I am part of my universe that I'm creating. So that's why I extend that thing to fashion. Whatever you wear is also a statement or also a type of thing that you are creating, that you want to see yourself in. So visual art over the last few years have sort of seeped into high fashion in a very rapid way. We have people like Virgil Abloh, Takeshi Murakami, and a bunch of other artists who have redefined the realm of fashion and have taken the visual art form and put it on a pedestal when it comes to high fashion. And yeah, this is the other leg of world building. Remember, it's always a comprehensive thing. You have to select which are the elements in your world that you want to propagate or which you want to create using your emotions and your aesthetics. It can be, for some people, it can be like anything. It can be automobile, it can be spaces, it can be whatever medium you choose. But then the core that we discussed about, the geography, culture, myth, and emotion, These four factors needs to be intact when you're creating any kind of world, then be it fashion or anything. Now comes the components of visual world building. There are 5 key components which I feel like really works, like especially with my experience when I've been working. It's like visual identity. First, it's very important. Your world, your creation, your ecosystem of things and merchandises, whatever you call it, should follow a certain color symbol palette style. It shouldn't be like I'm doing one object in pink and the other object can be green. It can't be even complementary colors. You must make one color palette your primary color, which you will sort of replicate everywhere creatively to have that recall cohesive value to that entity. Then comes character, figures, certain avatars or icons. This works very well for us because we are naturally bound to gravitate towards things that look like us. Like I would rather, like that's why cartoons work, because cartoons, like for example, even if you take a mouse and you make him stand straight and behave like a human, it's interesting. So the moment you give, you create a protagonist, you create a hero, you create a character, it becomes easier for you to create a world around it rather than having an abstract idea of a world. So it can be anything. It can be any figures, it can be any sort of character or a mascot that really works in world building. Next comes lore, symbolism, patterns, hidden meanings. So to make your world more interesting, to make your art form more like mysterious and stuff, because we need to rely on things which are a little gray. Like for example, we all like the idea of ghosts, we like the idea of supernatural, we like the idea of dragons, fantasy, and all of that. I mean, we know it's not real, but why do you buy into it? Because it has the whole allure of mystery. It has the whole allure of like uncertainty or be it curiosity. So this really helps you like sort of create a buzz. Also helps you get a really good core audience who will always support you no matter what if you get that lore and symbolism part correct. Like for example, I sort of rely a lot on lores from like mythology, especially when it comes to like Eastern philosophies and Hindu mythologies and Greek mythologies. I pick up a lot of characters, I pick up a lot of stories, and I sort of create world around the stories using the other aspects of world building. And then comes medium and mood. Now, medium and mood is basically what medium tells your story in the most effective way. For me, it has always been ink for the longest time because black and white ink is how I learned how to sketch and draw. And I feel like if you really want to make something more impactful with depth, black serves the best purpose. So medium and mood is again one of the other key important parts of creating your world. And this medium can be anything depending on the artists. Like it can be, for Virgil it was clothes, then he changed to cars, then he went into shoes, then and before that it was album artworks, stage design. So whatever is the medium that speaks your story. Then comes environment, which is landscapes, cities, or abstract spaces. Whatever you feel like tells a better story again. Now, these are the key components. We have to always keep in mind that all these layers come together to form a coherent universe. If even one feels disconnected, the world collapses. That's why consistency is the key. The previous points that we saw, visual identity, color palette, symbol styles, lore symbolism, character figures, medium is a variable one, environment can also vary. But the first three are very important to make your world coherent and be like sort of consistent with everything that you do. So next, again, I always take Virgil Abloh as a good example because he played around with so many different mediums, so many different kind of like storytelling and world building, but he always stayed true to his aesthetic, which is deconstructed uh, everything. So he worked with he worked with multiple artists, starting from Kanye to Jay-Z to everything. He created the visual identities for each brand. He created a whole world which was translated into an experiential concert for people to come and experience. Not just the music, but the visuals as well, the clothes as well, the storytelling, the music videos, everything. Like starting from stage design to live performances. Like this is a good example of how visual art works in real, like a 3D space where the whole comprehensive 360 view of everything, starting from merchandising to fashion to music videos to album art to posters to even memes to that matter nowadays. So these are again some of his works. This is like a case study situation. There's Nike, there's Louis Vuitton, all of this. Takeshi Murakami there. Again, this is again an old work. Again, some of my old works for gas. Stuff. Wait a sec. Again, murals. Again, a few examples of public art spaces. This was in Delhi. So again, different album artworks. See, now I'm someone who has never been trained in this field. Like like I said, I did my engineering and that's it. Everything that I've learned is a self-exploration, and it all started with just sketching. The whole basic of this is that you need to sketch to sort of document your ideas. So now, again, the initial process to how to get you started is very simple. Like take a sketchbook and draw. You don't even need that anymore. If you have ChatGPT, that's all you need. But then the whole process of world building from ideas to immersion is basically, first is the research. What do you pull from subcultures, history, mythology that's around you? Like, need to observe things. Like, you're part of this world, right? How can you create other worlds if you don't understand that's around you? So, research is very important. That is, be it anything with history, subcultures, things that are popular around you, pop culture, subculture, counterculture, everything works. Basically, all things to do with culture. Ideation, what's the feeling? What's the truth? How well do you sort of are convinced by what you see is real? How well do you feel moved by a certain emotion or certain thing that's happening in the world around you, or the things that you're interacting with, things that you're working with? Medium choice is for what makes you feel the most comfortable. How do you want to like tell your story with, be it cinema, be it animation, be it clothes. And comes finalization, is to just polish everything that you have, like create the most finest version of what you have, and then you still take a step back and realize, do you still resonate with it or not? I mean, as a creative, I believe most of you are somewhere around like connected to the whole creative realm, I guess. And when you're making something, it's very easy to lose the essence of what you're creating because there's so many iteration that goes on. Like you're never happy with something at first. Then there'll be 10 other people coming and telling you you should do this better. And if you're working with a brand, there'll be approvals. Like, this is not working, that's not working, change this, change that. Then you're like, why did you hire me? Like, you can just do what you want, just get it in-house. But then that's the tricky part. Like, as you're understanding this concept of world building, you also have to be more open to this idea that this is their world that you're being commissioned to create. It's not entirely yours, but you're still the conduit and the medium for creating that. And for that, you should have a good amount of balance of how much of your essence is still left in your work and how much is theirs. There's always a healthy balance of that. You cannot fully be losing out this essence when you're doing work for like because then you lose out on your artistic style and you burn out because it's no longer fun. And I feel like to have that style intact, you need to understand that those few points, no matter how basic they sound, is very important to like just have a like a list. There's a checklist of things that is this working out? Is this point being taken care of? And is my essence still intact? Like I said, if you look at all my artworks that I've done so far, there's always an element of angst, there's always an element of like some sort of provocation happening. And that's my essence. So you'll have to sort of recognize what's the core of your world that you're building. And if you're able to like have that core intact in any of the finalized and polished work that you're doing. And that's the finalization process, not the polished object. Then, and what happens with this world building thing is you are not the only protagonist of the whole thing. You create this world for other people to come, enjoy, be part of it, appreciate it, and understand your story. So art that builds world doesn't just entertain, it stays with people. The very fact that I'm here in front of you and you guys are here is because you've been a part of my world in some way or the other, in some form or the other. And that's what helps subculture, fandoms, and has an emotional memory. And that's why, like, combining art and design is a very tricky thing because that last bit, emotional memory, we all know how to drive a car. We all know how to put toothbrush and all. The chances of you having a very emotional connect to a toothbrush until unless it's your ex or your someone doesn't matter. So it's not there. You'll always regard that toothbrush just to brush your teeth, right? But then if you had an emotional attachment to it, if it was part of a world that you had created, and it has some sort of a value to it, has a whole different emotional side to it. So when you're creating a world which is sort of artistically and emotionally driven, there is always an emotional memory attached to it, which always is further relatable for different forms of subculture. Now, when I say subculture, I'm a byproduct of subculture. Like heavy metal music, mangas, comic books were was a very small niche when I was growing up. Now that niche has become something really huge. And I still tell the same story from the people that were part of my world back in the day when I was still exploring these niches, using them to create more artwork, for more commercial artworks. These are the people that always stood by. So that was a subculture defining moment. And always remember when you're creating this world, when you're creating an art form or an art style, you need some sort of an appreciation, and it'll only come through people who kind of get you, understand you, and that's where the subculture bit comes in. Everything that is everything that is counterculture will become subculture. Everything that is subculture will eventually go on become pop culture. So it's up to you how you identify that, how you put yourself in that position, whether you want to be in the subculture realm, figure out what are the niches, build it up, build your world to a point that after some few years or something, it becomes part of the mainstream. And that's essentially how the route is, like for almost every other artist that I've seen. And yep, create worlds that speak the truth, fashion, cinema, visual arts and cinema, again, James Jean, like we spoke about the color palette being consistent. This is again from Dune. If you look at Dune, Dune is a very good example of how art and design and cinema really combine together to create something so grand. And if you look at each of the frame, why does it feel so immersive and so moving? Because each of the frames that are there have been designed like a painting. There are color codes, there are key color palettes that go in, and nothing is random. Nothing is just there for the sake of being there. It's been well thought out. Then there's James Jean again, which is again one of my key inspirations for anything that is print related or 2D art. Gaming is again one of the mediums that I really enjoy the most because it's the best example of how these two worlds really collide and create something I think this is the most maximum form of immersion anyone can create using art and design is through gaming. Like I said, games are the purest form of immersive world building. Artists create full environments, character design, symbol systems, and even fictional language that players live inside. Then, yeah, visual art and spatial experiences, gallery shows, immersive media, like all these experiences, again, well designed, thought out spaces that you create for other people to come and be in your universe. Then advertising. Again, these are all examples of visual arts and all the world building that I've been talking about. You can actually see it happening in each of them, be it the color palettes, be it the messaging that they're sending out. See, find your greatness. I mean, it's kind of vague, but it has some sort of a mystery, like a myth attached to it. So these are the storytelling attached to it. So these are things which actually kind of build the whole idea of storytelling and visual arts. Now comes the controversial part is AI. Like, how many of you think like AI is good and AI is gonna like really help us or AI is gonna kill us in the end? Like, what? It's a half-half. It's good? If you use that as a tool, it's good, right? Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. So I think AI is gonna straight up like not get our jobs, but definitely is gonna be the next big thing. It's already the big thing. So in spaces when it comes to world building, I think AI will really help us artists and designers to sort of fast forward and make things more quicker when it comes to things like storyboarding, concept notes, concept art, maybe just few show reels and stuff. This is perfect. So now, how is AI used in like world building? Now, some of the breakdowns are concept art and mood boards, like tools like, so there are few references of some of the AI apps that I use which really work. And I guess this can be a little helpful, is Midjourney, DALL-E 3, and Adobe Firefly. There's also one more I would like to add here is OpenArt. So if you, how many of you guys are familiar with OpenArt? Nope. So I would request you to just check out OpenArt. It's, again, if you have ChatGPT subscription, you also get a free OpenArt subscription, and you can train your own models, you can train your own art style, and you can just keep creating as much as you want. Then, obviously, it speeds up pre-production, iteration in film, fashion, games, and design. Style transfer, texture creation, these textures and all don't have a particular copyright on things. Like a human skin texture, do you think somebody's gonna go and copyright that? So it's very easy to get it done on AI, basically, like styles and textures. Then you obviously have in fashion designing and all for creating the silhouettes, creating basic model designs and models, and all is very easy to do it with AI. And obviously, game generation, we have already covered it in the whole concept art and mood boarding. Then we have interactive adaptive visuals, which is AI-driven generative art that responds to user inputs. For example, Refik Andol's sculpture. So I want you to look up Refik Andol's. How many of you guys know Refik Andol's? Just saying, yep. So you've seen his sculptures, right? How is interact? But the thing is, it is very AI driven. The whole process that he does, the sculptures, he does works which are very immersive, which are larger than life, and it's very tech forward. But AI is again one of the most important driving tools when it comes to the interaction, how you interacting. For example, Touch Designer is there, right? When you design stuff on Touch Designer, all the nodes and the stuff that you use can be automated very easily using AI. Then comes spatial experiences, creative prompting, like AI models. So you can definitely, this is one important thing, like as artists and designers, AI models is something that we should all learn how to create because, I mean, we can't, we are not, ethically wrong for us to copy other artists, right? Now, if you have a huge body of work, like I've painted around, let's say 100 paintings, you have a specific art style and a design style and a design language, an aesthetic. Now, creating a model is easier for yourself because this is your creation, this is your aesthetic, this is your artwork. You feed those art styles, your art style, to create a model which will help you replicate your art for better, like for faster processing and making more art out of it. For example, you need to create, suppose you need to present a pitch, and for that pitch, the brand or whoever is concerned is basically, they want your specific art style to come through in all the products and all the stuff. You're not going to sit down and create something for scratch. I mean, that's how we used to do it. To create the presentation, to create the references and everything, it's a very time consuming process. But if you have an AI model in place, you just put in the prompts that you want. You basically copy paste the brief that the client has given you, and you just put it in your model and you start creating. In 10 minutes, you'll have around at least 10, 20 different variations and iterations in your aesthetics and in your style. This helps you reach out to wider audience, like cuts down your time, your initial time of pitching, creating an ideation. At the same time, you can actually work for more clients, not just one. What the things that used to take hours and weeks can be done in like a day or a few minutes. And I think that's one of the major takeaways how AI can actually help visual artists to sort of create things in a much faster way. And yeah, there you go. There's Refik and all. That's machine hallucination. That's basically machines dreaming and moving. Then Gucci did an entire whole AI campaign using AI to create ads and stuff, which is, I mean, it's gonna stay here. It's gonna straight up, AI is here to stay. It's only the matter of time that's when you start adopting it and learning how to use AI, basically. Again, this is again one of my work. This is Gan Paint. See this now, the whole morality bit, I think this is where people are getting divided. Like, are we stealing art? Is it art if a machine makes it? But then you have to understand, we need that human, in order to sell anything, any product, we need a human approach to it. I'm not going to buy anything that a robot sells to me, but I'm still going to buy something, be it a story, be it a movie, be it a burger. I'm still going to buy it if my friends tell me to. I'm still going to go get it if someone recommends, people that I know recommends it to me, or if it's a really human, there's a human touch to it. So obviously AI will help us create things, but the designing part, the placement, the world building, the idea of the world that you want to create will only come through us, like human beings. So again, these are the primary concerns that we're facing is obviously plagiarism and style theft, models trained on artists' work without credit. That happens a lot. There's so many models which have been trained with like Junji Ito style, manga style and stuff. Authenticity questions, what makes art human? What is the artistic role in co-generated pieces? So, is it just because it's made by a machine and someone who's behind a keyboard, does it count as art? Then biases in AI, which is algorithm, visual stereotypes, unless carefully designed, basically. Most of these AI and algorithms are trained in a certain way. So whatever you put in, it'll end up making something like a Midjourney has a certain style. It'll only create images in Midjourney aesthetics. OpenArt has its own style. That's why I keep saying training a model would be very beneficial. And yeah, I think the future here lies in basically a form of a fusion, a hybrid kind of a situation where artists actually work with AI to create more and make more art. I think that's how AI and art should function. And yeah, like I said, symbiotic creativity. That's where I think we all are sort of heading towards. in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Shantanu, for this awesome master class and you being a very good audience.
Thank you so much, guys.